got the aim now. You don't have to spend a minute to think about your aim. You just need to convert your research objectives to the question. In first thing, we talked about it last time as well, that you need to have a research scope. In the research scope, that means what your research is about, how that is going to add value to your CV, how that is going to add value to your professional development, and how you are going to conduct that research as well. So there could be several things which you include in the research scope. So basically, the research scope is the territory, the boundaries of your research. Who are the people you are going to involve? What is your topic? How that is aligning with your course? How that is aligning with the country you are researching in? Is it UK? Is it Africa? Is it America, or some other countries as well? So you have to come up with a boundary of your research, because you can't do research in a worldwide scope, that I'm going to do a survey and asking people that what do you think about project management, and you can go anywhere and ask that question. No, project management definition from one place to another place could be different, based on their experience, based on their mindset, based on their culture, based on several different other factors. So what we need to do, we need to think about, okay, that project management, the question I need to ask, should I go to people who are working in the UK, or should I go to the people who are working in any other country or any other particular place? So we need to define a territory, and that brings you the limitation to your research, and that brings you that develops the scope of your research inside. Guys, switch off your microphone, please. Okay, please make sure your microphones need to be switched off all the time. Don't play around with that, otherwise I have to giving you stop giving you access to the microphone. All right, so that is what we're talking about. So you need to define a scope. Why your research is important? Why are you doing it? Where you are doing it? What is the important factors of your research? And that is what we are going to learn today. So basically, I'm going to talk about the 4 Ps, which is basically 4 Ps of the marketing as well: product, people, place, and process. And that will give you a very good idea how to think about your research, or how to come up with a research title, your aim, objectives, research question, and a tentative structure of your literature review. So let's start. As an example, your tentative topic is implementing lean in projects. Now, when we look at that topic, implementing lean, yes, we are trying to implement lean in the project. Now, that is a very generic topic, and that doesn't gives us any clear view what type of project we are talking about, where are those projects, and what will be the final outcome of the research as well. So we need to think about the final product, how the final product will look like. What will the reader take from your research, and how they can use that into their organization or into their life or whatever they are doing. So we need to think about all these things. Now, many of you will have that kind of generic topic in your mind. So that is what I'm trying to say. If you have the topic, keep the notepad with you and start writing when I'm talking. Start making the notes, and you will come up with at least the first draft of your title, aim, objective, research question, and the literature review. So implementing lean in the project, that is a very generic topic, and you need to define your scope, that you are going to implement lean in what type of project, what will be the final outcome, who are the people going to use your research, who are the beneficiaries. So all these things we need to think about. Now, how can we do that? So let's see. Now, first thing, we are going to talk about the identifying the scope of the research through the product. So we have to think about the product. What will be the final outcome, or what could be the final outcome? What are you trying to come up with? You are trying to come up with a guideline, you are trying to come up with a report or publication, you are trying to come up with a suggestion, you are trying to come up with a framework or a model or whatever. So if you are implementing lean within projects, how that could be useful to the readers, useful to the beneficiaries. So we need to think about the product. Now, in that case, we can take it tentatively. Let's say I want to come up with a framework that will help people, or people can take that framework and implement it in their organization or in their projects. So again, it could be a set of guideline, it could be a set of suggestions that I will come up with a suggestion on how to implement lean within project, or I will come up with the best practice, that these are the best practice to implement lean within the project, so people can take that best practice and implement lean within the project. Now again, it is still generic. It doesn't give us the clear idea which projects we are talking about, because implementing lean in construction project could be different than we're talking about the IT projects or project related to the HR management or the supply chain, logistics, or any other different type of sector. So implementing lean. So over here, I have taken that a framework. I'm going to take a framework for implementing lean within construction project. So I come up with construction, that I will take that into construction project. Now this topic is much more clear to me. And I believe you agree on that as well, that this topic is much more clear. It gives me the scope of the research, that this is a framework. This research is about a framework for implementing lean and implementing lean within the construction project. So that is the first thing we come up with. Now, it is limited to developing a framework in the construction project. So you are just reducing the scope, or you are filtering the the broad scope into a specific scope as well. That will be really, really useful for you, because that is much more manageable. Now, what is happening here? If you got a very broad topic, you are implementing lean within project, you don't know which country, you don't know which type of project, you don't know what you're implementing in lean. Are you going to implement one of the lean tools? Are you going to implement the lean methodology? Are you going to implement one of the principle, for example, continuous improvement? So you don't know what is going on. So your scope is very wide, and that will be unmanageable. So we need to bring, or we need to keep your research manageable. So what are you doing here? You are developing a framework within the construction project. Now, what else can be done? We are talking about the product. The initial topic, the generic topic, was the implementing lean within construction project. Then we have the refined topic, a framework for implementing lean within construction project. Now, what we can do in construction as well, it could be commercial, it could be residential construction, or it could be a different type of, maybe we talk about infrastructure, maybe we talk about bridges only, maybe we talk about something else. Maybe we talk about the commercial construction, and in commercial we talk about shopping malls. So that will be much more specific, and there are benefits to do that. So what we can do, we can restrict it to commercial or residential building as well, because when we talk about construction project, it covers everything in construction project. So we can think about the residential construction or the commercial construction. We can think about the category of construction. So residential or the commercial construction. So what I did here, I come up with a framework of implementing lean within a residential construction project. Now that is my product. That will be the outcome of my research, that I'm coming up with a framework that will help me implement lean within a residential construction project. Now with that, that gives me a very quick idea that this research is useful for me or not. And you know what? The title, research title, is very, very important, because when you go to a bookshop or a library, what do you see? The first thing you look for, the title of the book. Because if you like the title of the book, then you might read the abstract or might read the introduction of the book, and decide that you are going to read it, or you are going to buy it or borrow it or whatever. So the title is very, very important. So when somebody is browsing, and when you browse, when you do research online, Google Scholar or in the library site or any other journal, that is what you look for, the title. And that gives the idea to you and the other people, other readers, that this is the relevant piece of literature for you. So we are coming up with a title. We looking at the framework for implementing lean within residential construction projects. So this title looks much more better to me. Now, we have talked about project. Now let's talk about people, how people can be involved in it. Now we had the topic implementing lean in construction projects, that was generic. Then we got a framework for implementing lean within residential construction project, that is much more specific now. When we talk about people, now we are talking about residential construction project. We are talking about a framework for implementing lean. So who could be the beneficiaries? Who are the people going to use this research? Can somebody can you answer me? What do you think? Who are going to use this research? Who are the beneficiary? So this research could be useful to which people? Who are implementing framework, implementing lean within the residential construction project? So who could be those people? Project managers. Very good. Benedict, excellent. Project managers. They are people who, it could be civil engineers as well, or it could be the lean managers as well. Many of the construction sites, they have the lean managers as well. Project handlers, yes. Supervisors. There could be many people, whoever involved in construction. The people who has been with me on one of the module, we have learned that if you are going to implement lean, it is a joint effort. Everybody have to implement lean. So that framework could be useful for all the people involved in construction, or all the organization involved in construction, contractor, main contractor, subcontractors, or maybe the suppliers as well. So we need to think about the people, but who are the main people who will initiate the lean implementation? We need to think about that as well. So it could be the client, it could be the main contractor, or it could be the project managers. So who will use your framework? Who are the beneficiaries? These are the questions to ask here. So when you got at this stage, when you got to the stage of the people, think about who will use your framework and who are the beneficiaries. Now in that, we came up with project managers, that project managers are going to use this framework. Now I refined the topic again. There could be a community of practice, which is project managers. Think about, is your research is relevant to the practice and theories in the field? What is already known and all that? You can think about all these things as well. But I came up with a refined that, okay, the main beneficiaries for my framework to implement lean within residential construction projects are the project managers. So I refined the topic, a framework for project managers to implement lean within residential construction projects. Now you are making it clear to the people that this research is for project managers. Project managers, just look at this framework and you can implement lean within the residential construction project. Now those project managers are for residential construction project, not from commercial. For residential, you are making it very specific for them as well, and you are coming up with a niche now. So you will have a niche market for your research. So the the final title, we have a framework for the project managers to implement lean within residential construction project. So we thought about the project managers. It could be the clients, it could be the main contractors. It depends on the scope, it depends on the context of your research. Now, there could be many other people who you want to involve, but having just one community of practice like project managers is quite useful. Now, this research is still doesn't tell us the place where this research is based on. Now, project manager, residential construction managers, or residential construction project managers are all around the world. So, where you are talking about the reason why we need a specific territory or specific place, so you can have a manageable data collection strategy. If you are research, you think that you are going to target project manager. Now, this tells that you are going to ask question to the project manager. That makes it very, very clear, because those are the beneficiaries and those are the right people to ask the question as well. So you go to the project manager, ask them, what do you think? What is the best strategy, or what is the best practice to implement lean into residential construction project? So you know that you have to target the people who are managing the residential construction project. So those will be your target population for your surveys or for the interviews. Now, if those people are all over the world, all around the world, you can't go around the world and ask them to for the interview or the survey as well. That will be unmanageable, because when we think about around the world, there would be maybe hundreds of thousands of project managers who are involved in residential construction projects. So that makes your research target population very, very big. So in that case, you need to have high number of your survey responses. Now, let me give you an example. If we just talk about the UK construction industry, in UK construction industry, there are more than 3.5 million people employed. And out of that 3.5 million people, there are about 11% is about the people who are clients and the executives and all that, on the higher ranks. Now, those are the people you are targeting. Now, if I say that you have to send a survey to 3.5 million people, can't do that. But when I say 11% of 3.5 million, which is somewhere about 30,000, 40,000, then it is much more manageable. But when I say out of that 11%, only 1% are the project managers, then it is 3,900. That your target population is much more manageable. So that is why we need to have a clear understanding of the people who are the beneficiaries, who are you involved in your surveys and your interviews. So you need to think about the target population as well. And later on, you can again squeeze it down to a couple of hundred people based on their skills. Now, I'm talking about overall construction, 3,900 people. But when I say just in residential construction, it could be only 500. Now, out of 500, how many people you need to interview to reach the saturation point? That is the question. And you can say, easily make a justification that out of 500 is only 20 people need to be interviewed to reach the saturation point. And that 20 number becomes your sample size, that this is your sample size, that 20 interviews you need to do. And that is how you need to justify your research methodology. Now, for place, now you can think about place. Now, if I say only Manchester, that your respondents need to be from Manchester only. Now, in Manchester, think about how many project managers will be who are managing residential construction. It could be only 10, it could be only 50, or maybe 100. So out of 100, how many you need to interview? Now that makes your research much more manageable. And it will be much more easier to find or identify those people to interview as well. So you are squeezing down your research. Now, sometimes you can have the country that you are your residential construction project in the UK, residential construction project in Zimbabwe, residential construction project in India, residential construction project in any other country. So you can think about that as well. But having a particular country or a particular place is always an advantage. That gives the limitation to your research, that gives the scope and the boundaries to your research as well. So that is very, very useful that you have the place. Now, if I'm working in Manchester as a project manager of residential construction project, I can always go to your research and take that framework, because that framework is based on the projects in the Manchester. That framework is based on um, within the territory of the Manchester, because I'm working in the Manchester, so I need to know what is needed to implement lean in residential construction projects in Manchester. Now, it could be different that people, the way of working of the people in Liverpool, way of working of the people in London is different. The mindset of the people or the organization in London and mindset of the people and organization in Manchester is different as well. So that is why I'm going to the specific report or specific framework, which I'm sure that because that is based on Manchester, the research is based on Manchester, and that will be very, very useful to me. Now I'm not saying that you restrict your research to Manchester or a particular city. You can restrict your research to maybe Northwest, West Midland, a slightly bigger area, or England, or maybe Scotland, or maybe the UK as well. You can go for anything. All depends on what you want to do. Now, the final topic so far is a framework for project managers to implement lean in residential construction project in Manchester. That is much more clear to me. That makes me clear that what is this research is about. And doing that is going to add value to your aim and objectives, and that is okay. So all these topics we have talked about. So far we had the generic topic, and then we have first refined, then second, then third, and then the fourth, and now this is the sixth one. Sorry, so that's the sixth one, which is a framework for project managers to implement lean with residential construction project in Manchester. Now we can also think about the process. Now we are talking about residential construction project. In a residential construction project, that could be several different processes. For example, design process. For example, development process. For example, procurement. For example, logistics. For example, supply chain. So there could be several different processes. Now you can think about which process you want to go for. I would say in a construction project, I take for an example that I am going to focus on the handover process. Now, that process could be the area of your interest that you want to go, you want to learn more about it, and you want to do maybe in 5 year time, you want to work, in a position that where you will be handling that type of processes. So I am taken the handover process. So the refined topic is going to be a framework for project managers to implement lean within residential construction handover process. Now, I know I made it much more specific that I am going to target people who are project managers and involved in the handover process of residential construction. Now, how many people will be who are involved in handover process in residential construction in Manchester? Maybe 50. So I got my population. Okay, those are the 50 people I need to target for the survey. And that is very easy to do it. I can just send an email and I can just send an online survey and it will be done. So the quality of the data we are going to collect from those people, you can't collect it if you stand in the city center or the Arndale and giving people, handing the service to the people. And they don't know anything about the construction. They don't know anything about the handover process. They don't know anything about the project management. So those are the most relevant people who are going to answer your question. And that gives me a much more specific topic that this is what I am going to do. This is what I am doing. Who are the beneficiaries? What product I'm coming up with? What is the scope, the residential construction, and specific scope is the handover process, and what is the place, Manchester. So you know all the demographics which are involved in your research, and that will give you a very good idea along the way when you are writing your proposal and when you are writing your dissertation as well. So let's see a bit further. Now, this is our final topic, and that was our journey that we have refined based on place, we have refined based on product, we have refined based on place and the process, and the people as well. So based on all that, this is the topic. Now look at the first topic, implementing lean within project. Now look at the final topic, a framework for project managers to implement lean. We got a final topic. So this is the
How do
final
you
topic.
come up with an aim and
Now, a
objective?
framework for project managers
You
to
need
implement
to
lean within residential construction handover
spend
process
some
in
time to
Manchester.
think about
That is
that
much more
final
specific.
topic.
Maybe maximum 1 hour, 2 hours. You think about you think about the people, you think about place, you think about the product and the process as well. Other things could be that you are thinking about the methodology as well, what methodology you are going to use. So, for example, you can say a qualitative study to develop a framework, a quantitative study to develop a framework. You think about the method, you can think about the methodology as well. That is absolutely fine. So there are room to play around. How do you want to come up with your topic? Now the trick is, how can you come up with the aim and objectives from this final topic? Now, what I did here, you got the final topic here, a framework for project managers to implement lean within residential construction handover process in Manchester. Now, the aim of this research is to develop a framework for project managers to implement lean within residential construction. You got the aim now. You don't have to spend a minute to think about your aim. That gives you the aim straight away. And that is much more clear to me that you are developing, that is the aim of the research, because that is the framework you are developing, that is the final product, and that is the aim of this research. So you're developing a framework for project managers. When we talk about objectives, we have to break it down to 5 to 6 objectives maximum. Don't go beyond that, because that need to be manageable as well. More the number of objectives you have, more the effort you will need to fulfill those objectives. Try to keep it between 4, 5 maximum, and that is more relevant. That is the question many students ask: how many objectives should I have? You should not have more than 4 to 5 objectives. Now let's break it down to objectives. Once we have the aim, the trick is you just need to break the aim down to the objectives, and you need some thought process for that. So the aim of the research is this. Now, the first thing what we need to do is the first objectives must be about literature review, because that is the first thing we are going to do. The first objective is about the literature review. To review the literature of, now which literature review you're going to do based on the same, the literature of implementing lean. So that you have to find the keywords from here, implementing lean within residential construction handover process in Manchester. That is one thing. So you are going to review the literature of implementing lean in residential construction project in Manchester. That is what your literature review is about. That is what you need to do. And I will show you later on how we can break it down to the structure of literature review chapter. Then after that, once you have the literature review, what you are going to do, or maybe during the literature review, what you are going to do. Now, what I'm suggesting here, you use the words like action words, what you are doing. Don't use determine. Don't use, uh, you know, just reviewing. Because review is just for the literature review. You need to analyze. You need to critically analyze. You need to investigate something. It is research. So you can use these words: analyze, investigate, study, guideline, framework, etc. Not etc., but there are more words as well. So these are the words, some of the words I've given. There are many other action words for the research. So you can always Google and find more words as well. But again, that should be relevant to your research. To investigate, analyze the current understanding of the project managers. So you are looking at the understanding of the project management. Remember, I told you these are your target population. So you are trying to investigate what is their current understanding to implement lean in the residential construction process. Those are the people. And how will you investigate that? You can say, you can also say through qualitative or the quantitative analysis, or through mixed method. It's up to you. What do you want to choose? It all depends on your research. Then you can analyze and study or establish the existing practice. You're looking at the current understanding, then you're looking at the existing practice of implementing lean within residential construction process. Now you might see that I'm not restricting myself here to Manchester, because that is not relevant. If I'm relying on the literature review here, that could be from anywhere. But do not just rely on a one particular country or one particular territory. So you are going to have a general literature review, and then you're going to have a specific literature review which is based on Manchester. So you might be looking at the general frameworks, what people have come up with to implement lean within construction projects or residential construction projects specifically, and then you can analyze those frameworks and then finally come up with your own framework based on your understanding on Manchester. So that could be one of the way to do it. There are several different ways to do it. It all depends on how do you want to establish your research process. Then after you looking at the existing practice, you find the current understanding, then existing practice, and then what is the best practice to implement lean into residential construction process. So what you are doing here, you are breaking down your aim, and you are just putting two. Make sure all the objectives should start with two: to review, to investigate, to analyze, to establish, and finally your final product. That should be the final objective. Your first objective always need to be literature review. Your final objectives always need to be your final product, to develop a framework and a set of guideline, or it could be to develop a set of guideline, or it could be to develop a model, or it could be develop a recommendations, or to come up with a recommendation, or it could be anything else. It all depends on what product you thought about it. So you just break it down to the objective, whatever your aim is. Just try to break it down into 4 to 5 objectives, not more than that. Now, once you have these objectives, how to come up with your research question? You just need to convert your research objectives to the question in the form of question. So research objective, you are writing to review the literature on implementing lean. Just convert it. What does the literature say about implementing lean within residential construction process? I just added what does the literature say. That's it. And it converted into a question, the first one. There is no need to convert that, the first one, the literature review, into the question, but I just given you an example here. Now, the second one was to investigate the current understanding of the project manager. Now, what I'm investigating here, what is the current understanding? So I converted into a question. What is the current understanding of project managers? And rest is same. Very simple. Convert objectives into question, and that becomes your research question. The what is the existing practice of implementing? So I have taken this thing. So what is the existing practice? So I just added what is, and that becomes a question as well. Now the fourth one, again the same thing. So what is the best practice? So I just added what is. It could be how, it could be something else as well. So how can you do something, or you just need to change it to the question form. So you are using the same objectives and just change it to the form of the question. That's it. Very easy. So the only thought process you have is coming up with a topic and then breaking your aim into the objective. That is the only thought process you have. Otherwise, that everything is very, very quick and easy. Now, we already did the topic, research objectives, and research question. Now let's see how we can break it down to the literature review. You have the final aim, your final topic, which is same as the aim of your research. and I break it down to a structure of the literature review. Now, the literature review is normally you are going to write an introduction, background of the research. Now, I will pick the main keywords from the final topic or the main keywords from the aim and objective, which is same in a way. So the main thing is implementing lean. Or look, you can look at the first objective as well and just break it down into the literature review, into the structure of the literature review. So first one is lean thinking. That is the main keyword. So lean within implementing lean. So lean thinking, we start from the beginning that we are talking about the lean. What is lean about? What is lean thinking? Where does it come from? Give a slight introduction of it, and then straight away move to implementing lean in construction. So our literature review is based on implementing lean in construction, and then specifically lean in residential construction or lean in construction processes. So that, or it could be both as well. It's all about you. How do you want to design it? But this is just an example I came up with that you are going to break it down. There are two main headlines. One is lean thinking. One is about lean, and the second one is residential construction. And then you have the framework. So there is a third one. So give it a chronicle order. You are going to talk about lean implementation. Then you're going to talk about in residential construction. So residential construction, what is residential construction? What are those? What are the processes? And how can we implement lean into residential construction? Then you talk about the frameworks for implementing lean, because you're coming up with a framework, so it will be good idea to look for other framework, what other people are came up with. So looking for the other framework, analyze it, critically evaluate it, and come up with your own framework as well. Many of the researchers, they rely on those frameworks, and based on those frameworks, sometimes they combine two frameworks together, come up with their own. Sometimes they combine some of the factors or some of the characteristics from different frameworks, and they come up with their own, what they think is more relevant or much more useful. Maybe those frameworks are from other countries as well. Those frameworks are from other territories, but you can still do it. You can compare those frameworks, and you can critically analyze. You can add or remove something from those frameworks as well. Not just the master student, but the PhD students do that as well. So it is absolutely fine if you are looking at the framework for implementing lean. Identify 4 or 5 main frameworks to implement lean, and framework for implement lean in residential construction process. So that is much more specific. And then finally you give the main findings and the summary of the chapter, and that completes your structure or your literature review, and that will you will be using for your proposal and for your main dissertation as well. So coming up with a final topic, that is very, very important. And once you have a final topic which is refined and that gives the clear picture of what you are going to do, you can easily come up with the aim, objectives, research question, and the structure of your dissertation. Now, finally, when you're coming up with the structure of the dissertation and you're searching for the articles and searching for the literature, you can come up with a list of keywords when you are writing. I suggest you come up with a list of keywords. The keywords are lean implementation, framework for implementing lean in residential construction process. So those are the keywords you should be making a list of, because when you search for the articles, you can always use those keywords. At that time, you got all the keywords in place. So when you have the structure, those becomes your main headline, and those becomes your keywords as well to find the articles. Now when you are searching for it, you can use boolean operators, for example and or. So lean implementation and residential construction, lean implementation but not in other projects. So you can use the boolean operators.